is. I've heard of them before, but I appreciate you bringing them up. I wasn't thinking of them as one of the interesting covers. So it was a good call there on the text line. By the way, text line is open 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776. We're asking today who you want to see targeted, get the most targets. Who do you want to see? And it could be a running back. It could be a running back. Who do you want to see rush the quarterback the most? And how would you attack this team? How would you go after Iowa State? We did have a texter ask, and I looked this up during the break. You asked, what was the coldest weather game Texas played in last year? Because Iowa State looks like it could be around freezing by the time Texas plays there. It could be in the 40s. It could be in the 20s. We'll see. But what was the coldest weather game Texas played in last year? Just wondering. I believe, if I'm not crazy, the Kansas game last year was a road game in Kansas in November, and it was actually very cold in that game. If what I'm looking up is correct, the temperature in Lawrence, Iowa, and Lawrence, Kansas last year for that time of that game should have been in the 20s. So it would have been a cold game. Texas won very handily. That was a 55-14 whooping that Texas put on Kansas. But it was a running game for Texas. That was a game where Bijan put up 243 rushing yards. Jonathan Brooks had another 108 rushing yards because he had that big 70-yard run against Kansas last year. So they had 427 yards of offense just on rushing. Quinn Ewers only threw 12 for 21 for 107 yards in that game and a touchdown. So it was not a heavy passing game in that game. It was a heavy, heavy dose of Bijan in the cold weather. You do not have Bijan. You do not have Roschon. You do not have Jonathan Brooks, who even had a 100-yard rushing game in the cold weather last year. But you do have some good young backs in C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue, and Keelan Robinson's still there. Savion Red is still there. So you do have some people on this team. But that is, if you're looking for what the cold weather game last year was, Texter, they apparently, if I'm correct, don't kill me if I'm wrong, so I did research on my phone in the break. It is Kansas last year, the Kansas game, which Texas won, but it was the heavy, heavy dose of running the football. This texter says, Texas 35, Iowa State 3, ... at the end of the third quarter. Final score, Texas 42, Iowa State 38. God, I hope they don't put up 35 in a quarter. I hope they don't. I wouldn't put it past Texas, but 35 in a quarter. Good Lord. Good Lord. Texter says not a band, but a very good AI version of Sinatra doing Smells Like Teen Spirit. We did play Paul Anka doing kind of Smells Like Teen Spirit. So Paul Anka, similar vibe to Frank Sinatra. He's no Frank. Don't get me wrong. But we did play that yesterday. I appreciate that. This texter says Isaiah Nayor, cold game vet. Look, man, get him in there. If no one else can catch a football, I imagine everybody's going to be able to play and catch. It's not negative. Negative is where you really start to worry about it. It's just uncomfortable. You may see some drops in this game if it is that cold for Iowa State. If it is in the 20s, if it's in the 40s, there's no excuse. But if it's in the 20s, then you get that excuse a little bit more. Carrie from Elgin says, if Texas only gets 55 plays in this game, like people are expecting, Quinn should be able to throw the ball the entire game. But if it's 20 degrees, it's 25 degrees out, Kevin from Elgin. Now you like that, I appreciate the text. I don't know if you want to throw the ball 55 plays. And also, I don't know if Quinn could throw the ball 55 plays. Depending on how his arm is right now. It depends. Like, we just don't know how healthy Quinn Ewers is. We just don't know. It's a huge question mark, but we don't know. And he also says, as we speak, Peyton and Eli are working on breaking that 3-high defense for Archie. Look, I guarantee they've got it figured out. Peyton's got it figured out. He's ready to go. He's ready to check in. Peyton's getting another year of eligibility. He's coming back for it. We're going to keep the show rolling. Text line's open, 512-447-3776. Which player do you want to see get the most targets? Which player do you want to see rush the quarterback the most? Put those in the text line. Also, if you have a way to attack Texas can attack Iowa State, put that in as well. We'd love to hear from you. And anything else you want to talk about in the second hour, the 6 o'clock hour of the Sports Complex, send us in, 512-447-3776. While we say you guys drive the show, I just try to keep it on the rails. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, hit hour 2, talk some Texas basketball with another win last night, a little NFL for you as well, and whatever you guys talk about on the text line, we'll talk about it here on the show, right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 1019, AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com. Hour 2 here on the Sports Complex here on the Horn. Going to talk some Texas basketball with you. Maybe a little NFL talk if we get some time. Replaying the schedule game. I got some schedule game with the Cowboys and Texans and even the Browns because it's somewhat interesting to me now. And, of course, your text, 512-447-3776. We're also going to play you a great interview from Jerry Hamilton talking Texas recruiting. We'll play you that for you in this hour as well. Maybe a little NBA talk, too. Who knows? Who knows what we can get into here in hour 2. And you guys drive the show. Remember that on the text line, 512-447-3776. If you got something you want to talk about, something you want to talk, if you still want to talk some Texas, Iowa State, you guys can hit us up there as well. Texas did play Rice, though, yesterday. It was an interesting game. You saw a lot of people kind of remembering Texas versus Rice last year. Texas versus Rice last year was an overtime game, but that was also because it was the game that Chris Beard had been arrested that morning. No one knew what was happening. When I got to the arena that day, it was, there were still questions in the air. Rodney Terry did not even name the interim head coach until we were all there. He was on the sideline, and I guess he had just come out from the meeting where he was told, you're now the interim head coach. You're at least for tonight. I don't even think they said going forward. They just said for tonight, Rodney Terry is the head coach. And it was a game where Texas really had to fight through that game. It was hard to get them to focus. And by the end, it went to overtime. And that was kind of Sir'Jabari Rice's coming out party where he just took over in overtime and they were able to win that game. So that was a story a year ago, or roughly, but really about 11 months ago. Since then, Rodney Terry has firmly taken the grasp of the head coach position there at Texas. He is now as a top 5 recruiting class going into 2025. Or 2024, excuse me. He has that top 5 recruiting class, getting Trey Johnson on that class. So he's got the recruiting down. We'll see how he does in the transfer portal, but he's done well in the transfer portal this year, bringing in Max Abmas, one of the top people in the transfer portal. He came out. He is now part of there, getting some other good guys. Zarek Onyema, Ithiel Horton, I believe is IT Horton is what they're calling him. Caden Shedrick, who got his first start last night. He's brought in some good players. Chris Johnson, also getting to see him a little bit more. Want to see Chris Johnson get involved in there. Had some really good plays in that game as well. Some standouts from the Texas Rice game that you may notice. Caden Shedrick. This is his Shedrick. When you say Caden, it wouldn't say Shedrick. It's Shedrick. I keep saying it wrong. I don't know why. But Shedrick had a great game. This was his first starting game. So he got bumped up to 20 minutes. He'd been playing about 12. He played 21 minutes in this game. And one of the things you saw, got to the free throw line a lot. He was able to get under and fight under the basket. Now, he's taking bumps, and I'm sure Terry and I'm sure everybody in the building is watching because he's playing good basketball, and you see him bump around on that shoulder that's still wrapped up in the surgically repaired shoulder, and you get a little bit antsy about it. But he gets 9 free throws in that game, which is pretty good. Ends up scoring 15 points. Plays a good game. Dylan Mitchell, rebounding-wise, gets 13 rebounds. A good game for him rebounding-wise. Shooting-wise, not so much. He's going to have to start to figure out that offensive part of his game a little bit more. But you still work with what your strengths are. He's a very good defensive player. He had 2 blocks and 13 rebounds. That's good where you're going to be at right there. He also had 5 turnovers. Turnovers are going to be an issue for this Texas team because they're trying to play the more upbeat, fast style offense. They're trying to play that new style of offense of you don't necessarily have a point guard who gets the ball, you set up a play in the half court. And if you're a good defensive team, you want to play this style. Good defensive teams really want to play a fast style of offense because it puts the other team, they miss a shot, and then you're able to come back down and score quickly on them. It really puts something onto this defense or the other team mentally that even if you stop and you miss the shot or the shot's not there, but you get down, now they're discombobulated because now they didn't score on one end, and maybe one guy's not happy that a shot went up or it was a turnover or whatever it was, and you're able to get in there and turn the tide around for this Texas basketball team, turn the tide and get a shot up and get them into a defense where they're not set with the guys they want on you. Get some mismatches. There was a couple of plays where you saw the refs maybe, buy into when they got that mismatch on the inside that the inside guy would flop and get away with it. You saw those. Some games you'll get those calls, some games you won't. You can't complain too much because you'll get those calls on the other end in some games too. But Caden Shindrick stepping up, playing that 21 minutes, getting 9 free throws was a big step. Dylan Mitchell showing that he can do, even when his shot's not falling, even when he's not playing well. He still had 6 points in the game, hit 3 of 6, so it wasn't terrible. He needs to work on his free throws a lot. I think they're still working on him on offense. And what's funny is you can watch him in all the preseason, and he has the same thing that a lot of players have, which is you see their preseason film and you see him working in the offseason, and you go, oh, this guy's going to shoot 90%. He's hitting everything. His problem is when he gets on the court and his heart starts racing, he starts pumping, he needs to recreate some more of that in practice of putting up shots while your heart rate is racing, while you're sweating, while you're running, doing all that, getting that shot. It's just a very different shot than setting up, standing still, and taking a shot. Now, that's great for form, but you need to train your body to get the form shot in and shot out. It's just a difficult thing to do. It takes time. I'm sure they're working on him with that as the season continues on. But he played a good game and played really good defensively as well. Max Abmas, it's going to be a long season. He goes 3 of 6 from 3, and he takes some threes from pretty far out. If you have not been watching the games, the first Texas game you watch, if you have not watched them, there will be a shot that he puts up that you will immediately go, what is he doing? But that's what Max Abmas, that's what these younger players now are starting to do after Steph Curry, after Dame Lillard, and those guys before them came out and were really setting the tone by taking long threes. And just when you hit them, it kills a defense because what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to get on you, 4 or 5 feet behind the 3-point line? And once they do, you're wide open because even if someone else steps over, you've got 10 passes. You've got so much you got going on. So it's something. He still shot 5 for 9. He shot 50% from 3. So you can't get too mad at him taking those crazy shots. It's just going to be a process for everyone at Texas to learn that it's okay that Max Abmas is taking those shots. Another good sign. Tyrese Hunter, 3 for 5 from 3 in that game. 6 for 8 shooting. 3 for 4 field goals. Looked much better. 4 assists, 1 turnover. Looked much better for Tyrese Hunter. Now it's a different game, and we know he's been streaky before. He did get a little banged up at the end of that game. I don't believe it was anything serious. Hopefully it's not anything serious. But Tyrese Hunter looked really good in that game, and that's a good step going forward because the first 2 games, it looked a little bit of last year with Tyrese Hunter where there was some issues that, you were hoping to be able to work through. You were hoping that Tyrese Hunter was kind of going to finally get through, and some of it's just yips because he can shoot. He looked really good, and hopefully this will spawn him playing even more and more consistent basketball as the season goes on. If you want to see him get some more of these non-conference games, some of the easier games, get his rhythm going a little bit better, especially at the Moody Center, especially at home. Get that feeling, get that comfort back for Tyrese Hunter, because if he's hitting shots, it makes this Texas team a whole nother level of team because now you have Max Abmas, now you have a Tyrese Hunter that can hit out there, and IT Hunter can go out there and hit some big shots. We know he can play. IT Hunter is going to have to learn how to play a little bit better defense. He defensively, he's missing on some. This Texas team as a whole is going to have to learn how to play combined defense, and I think Max Abmas, he does well at it, but I think as a whole, these guys that came from schools that weren't playing at this level, once they get to Big 12 play and they see the intensity and the players are playing, take that step up, you're going to see the holes in the defense show out even more. So it's going to be a process getting the new guys integrated as a team defensively. And IT Hunter is going to be a big one. If he can stay playing at a high level defensively, if he cannot be a glaring spot that everyone attacks him and tries to get mismatches and just run screens to get on Horton, that guy's going to be really good for Texas this year. But he has to be good enough defensively that he does not become a liability, that he needs to hit enough threes to make up for that. That's where he needs to get his game to. But a good game from him, good game from Onyema, played pretty well in there. Brock Cunningham, it was the Jorts game last night, so Brock Cunningham was supposed to be featured. He played 30 minutes in that game, had 8 points, played really well, 2 blocks in there as well, 3 assists. A couple things that Texas is going to have to work on. One, we talked a little bit earlier. They had 11 turnovers. A lot of those were early. A lot of those were early turnovers. Rodney Terry had said he wanted no more than 10 turnovers in that game. You got up to 11. You have to figure that out. Dillon Mitchell and Max Abmas were kind of getting off of their feet before they knew where they were going. Those two guys combined for 9 turnovers. I'm sorry, they had 16 turnovers. 16 turnovers in that game. And 9 of those were coming from Dillon Mitchell and Max Abmas. And if you have 16 turnovers, you want to be at 10. You know, you're a little bit over that, and those two guys were the big pieces of that. Driving to the paint, which is good, but then not paying attention to where the guys were at, not knowing the offense well enough to know where their balls, where they can throw, and not knowing where the defense was. There was one play I'll give Dillon Mitchell that he went in and drove, and a guy basically got lost on a defender and was completely out of position defensively and was trying to get back to his guy, and Dillon Mitchell threw where there should not have been a guy. But he was lost as a defender, and he gets a pick there. But you have to have that awareness on the court. That will come with time. The team will feel a little bit better, but they need to get those turnovers down is one thing for Texas basketball. Another issue, they need to control points in the paint. Rice did not kill them in points in the paint, but 28 points in the paint for a team that is undersized like Rice is, you need to stop that points in the paint a little bit more. Some of those were easy drives where a guy just missed an assignment on a switch and got blown past. You're going to need to clean up that part of the game to get it a little bit better. 28 points in the paint is not a killer, but it's something that you're going to need to fix as this Texas season continues on, is you're going to need to be able to clean up those points in the paint. You're going to need that rim protector. Dylan Disu coming back, hopefully, for Big 12 play will be a big help into that because then you will either have basically Shedrick or Disu, and then Mitchell will also be on there. They were pulling Mitchell out a little bit more, but you hope to have 2 defenders basically in the court all the time that can go up and block shots and stop points in the paint. That's going to be a big issue going forward. And the thing that was probably the easiest thing to pick apart for Texas yesterday, other than the 16 turnovers, they shot abysmally from the free throw line. That has to improve. I know I'm picky about it because I shot free throws. That was the thing I did well in all of basketball. It's a free throw. You have to be able to hit those. They went 12 for 22. You can't miss 10 free throws in a game. I mean, that's one of those things. I get it's Rice. I get you one, but you cover. You have the difference between covering in that game and not is by shooting a proper. You need to be shooting 8% free throws is kind of your minimum line where you need to be shooting. And if you do that, you're covering, right? That's it. That's where you're supposed to be at. So that game, you can decide. You can say Texas played well and did everything well. They just didn't hit their free ones. You got to be able to hit your free ones. It's something that you can practice on. It's something that's not that hard to do, but it's something that Rodney Terry and this team are going to have to keep working on as the season going on. Chan says new players from lesser conference, except for the big guy from Virginia. Yeah, they are. They're from lesser conferences. It's going to take them a little bit of time, but right now they're also playing against those same level. Like Rice was a step up from the other 2 teams they had played so far this season in the scrimmage they did. Rice is a step up from that, but you still have another step up. So they shouldn't be showing some of the flaws they are right now. Again, free throws is the one thing that I can't give you an excuse that it's early in the season. That's the one thing that I'm going to harp on because you need to get that cleaned up. You just need to clean up your free throws. It is what it is. We're going to keep the show rolling. I want to play you some interview from Jerry Hamilton. I'll actually, you know what? I'll mention the Draymond Green suspension. I haven't been able to talk about it yet. I know it was a hot button issue, and I'm a basketball guy, so I'll talk about that as well. Text line still open, 512-447-3776. And we'll keep the show rolling here. If you guys have anything else you want to put up there, your players that you'd love to see get receptions, your players you'd love to see go after the quarterback is on the text line, 512-447-3776. Right here on the Horn 1019 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com.